What's up, everybody? Big Herc 916. And you tuned in to another edition of my vlog. I want to say thank you for subscribing. Thank you for supporting. Appreciate all the comments and all the interesting things people like to share about the channel. You know, I'm all about that positivity and that motivation. And I just want to talk about Big Herc. Why don't you do drugs? Are you a square? That's what somebody asked me. Because they said, you don't get high, man. You don't smoke weed. You don't, sip a little bit. I'm like, nah, man. I ain't never really been into that. You never smoke weed? Nah, man. It ain't my thing, man. I've tried edibles one time. And, I call myself, snacking. And I didn't realize that when you actually make edibles, sometimes the THC is not dispersed evenly in the baked product. And on this particular product, it was condensed into the crust. And I ate quite a bit of crust at one point. And when it hit me, I was tore up. I was hearing things. I was seeing things. And I was an emotional wreck. I wanted to come down. I couldn't come down. One minute I was laughing. One minute I was crying. I tried to go to bed. I couldn't even get my clothes off. It took me over an hour and some change to take my clothes off. And then the TV sounded like it was in my head. It was a horrible experience, man. I don't know how people do it all the time. I don't know how they can get that high and, feel like that's something they want to do on a regular basis. I was so high, the next day, I was still high. I couldn't drive to the gym. I was out of it, man. It felt like I was groggy and I didn't have all my scruples. So needless to say, I've always avoided drugs. I never had the desire to get high, to be pissy drunk, and to act outside my mental limits as far as that's concerned. Anytime I did anything, I was always pretty much sober and on point, because that's just the type of person I am. And, I've seen people get high from a very young age. I've seen people, tooting the blow when I was real young. I didn't know what they were doing, but in retrospect, I now know that they were playing with nose candy. And, being around alcoholism, a family member that used to drink a lot, I never had the desire to be in that state. So just alcohol altogether kind of turned me off. I do occasionally to be social, maybe sip a little bit of wine, if it's some high quality wine, or have a little champagne or something, for somebody's birthday. But I don't have the desire to really feel like I have the need to drink on a regular basis. When I was young and, used to sell drugs, when I first started selling crack at 15, man, I remember, I didn't even know what, crack really was. I just knew that, you can make money selling it. And I remember I hooked up with this smoker, man. He said he had some customers for me, and he took me to a spot. And this spot, man, it was like pretty nasty inside, man. There really wasn't any furniture. I don't even know if the power worked in there, because it was night. And I think they had candles going up in that joint. And, the only thing these guys were concerned with was lighting up on these rocks. So in order for me to get the customers, I had to break them off, a few dubs. So it's, pretty much dark throughout the house. I'm a young cat. I got a Rambo knife on me. And this dude who I'm dealing with is old enough to be, probably my dad. And I'm serving them, and they lighten up, and you see the flame going on the damn pipe looking like Pookie in New Jack City. And it was crazy, man. I'm just looking at these people just suck on this glass pipe, man, and their eyes roll back, and the stench of the crack smoke. And I'm like, man, I'll never smoke this shit. I couldn't do it. I don't want to look like that, you know, trying to, you know, entertain somebody who's 20 years my junior for a bump. I don't want to be that guy, man. And, you know, it's just something that it just really never thrilled me, man. I've seen, you know, women give their bodies up for it. You know, dudes just run through them for a bump, you know, and I've seen, you know, guys, you know, and women get turned out on it. You know, dudes talking about, hey, man, you're smoking some weed, and that weed is laced with a Grimmy. You know, they used to call them cabbies back then, or, you know, I forgot what they would basically lace the weed with crack, speckle, you know, put crack crumbs in the weed, and you think you're smoking weed, and there's something else up in there. And next thing you know, you hooked. They laughing and stuff because now they got you, you know, fiending because you want that high, that crack high, thinking that you were smoking weed. And I just see so many people nowadays, you know, you don't know what you're getting. And it's sad, man. People talking to themselves, you know, people just strung out on, you know, spice, you know, these pills, these Norcos, these Vicodins, these Oxys. You know, I know somebody that was strung out on Adderall. They were taking up to 5 Adderall a day, and they were working crazy hours. And when they tried to come off the Adderall, they told me it was like trying to kick heroin. They were puking, they were pooping on themselves. They felt like they were just, their body was just shutting down, and they had the shakes, they had withdrawals. And I'm like, man, I don't want to go through that. And, you know, seeing that and being scared of being, you know, getting caught up and being hooked on any of these drugs is just something, you know, that I've always kind of like, it was a deterrent for me. You know, I don't have the luxury of being able to get high and then, you know, worry about somebody taking care of me, because I ain't got nobody, you know, outside of my wife to look after my best interest. And, you know, it could be that one bump, that one ecstasy tab that's laced with like fentanyl, or, you know, that generic pill that's cut with something else, and you're never the same. You know, I've talked to friends that's had people that have tried ecstasy for the first time, some older guys in their 50s. Him and his wife tried it for the first time, and dude, after he tried, he was never the same. His brain basically had fried his brain, and now the guy, you know, he mumbles on occasion. He's you know, at times incoherent. So, you know, you never know what you're getting, man. And that's the thing about drugs, man. You know, is you're dealing with a certain element, and profits, you know, have no clear cut limits. You know, if a person can cut something with something and it makes it, you know, stretch or makes it stronger, you know, it's crazy. People, you know, that's what they do. And you got people falling out over drugs, and the dope fiend wants the drugs that killed the other guy. You know, give me that stuff. That's the good stuff. And that's insane, where you want something that the other person died off of. You want the same stuff. And so, you know, you get different batches of these drugs out on the street, man. And, you know, these pharmaceuticals, you know, you don't know. You never know, man. You know, and a lot of this stuff is just, it's not healthy. And I don't want to be one of these people who are, you know, just homeless with poopy draws, smelling like pee-pee, you know, face all blowed out, you know, unshaven and breath stinking, and trying to figure out what happened because I decide to do a line of coke, or, you know, I let some old, you know, hot female turn me out, you know, and now I can't bounce back. I feel like I'm not the old, you know, the usual Herc. I'm some other, person. And I've had people, man, be like, hey, man, you want to do a line with me? I'm like, nah, man, that's not my get down. Come on, man, this is me. You know what I mean? You know how we do it. And I'm like, nah, I'm cool, man. You can go ahead and go do your thing, man. I'll wait down here. I'll wait downstairs. I don't need to go in the bedroom and watch you, do your thing. And, I remember a partner of mine, he good dude, but we were watching the MMA fight, and he went back to the room. Everybody's in the living room chilling, watching the fight, entertaining each other. And he comes out, he's got a white ring around his nose. I'm like, damn, man, his partner didn't tell him that he had candy around his nose still, and he talking with everybody, talking loud. And this dude is like, it looked like he put his nose in a bowl of powder. And I'm like laughing, man, and it's funny, man, but I don't want to be that guy everybody's laughing at. I don't want to be that guy who's got the powder around his nose and don't know it, and thinking that I'm cool because I just shared a bump with a homie. And it has its drawbacks because I don't get high. I've had people where they have a party and they don't invite me to the party because they say I'm too square. They're like, oh, Big Herc, they'll talk nutrition and protein and dieting with me and fitness. But then, as soon as I go home, that's when they bring out the dope and the hookers. That's when the real party kicks off. They're like, oh man, you went home at midnight, but at 1 o'clock, we had the party. I'm like, is that right? I didn't know so-and-so did that. Like, yeah, man, they called me up and, we came through there and they were doing lines off my butt, and, they were putting, E-pills in the booty hole, and all kind of freaky stuff was going on, man. And, we had blow on a pool table, and I'm like, wow, and he's always talking to me about some damn protein. Hey, it's funny, man. It's funny how people are when they do drugs and know you don't do drugs, and how differently they treat you. But I don't knock the person who wants to get high, man. I mean, hey, you got a lot of functioning, drug users that are able to still maintain, I guess a normal life. But it just ain't my thing, man. It's not something I look forward to indulging in, and I kind of just, my thing is, coochie, cars, and cash. And not necessarily in that order, cars, I got a big addiction, fixing up cars and stuff like that. I love to make money. And of course, busting my wife's cheeks, but other than that, man, I'm not really into the getting high aspect, I was talking to another partner of mine. His friend was saying, man, I think old boy sold me some baby powder. And he said, baby powder? He said, yeah, man, it's weak. The stuff was weak, man. Like it was some baby powder or Similac or something, man. Powder baby formula. And he's like, man, you're buying from a guy who practically lives in his car, who has a tab at the bar. So how do you think he's a reputable drug dealer when he could barely afford to pay his bills? And I started busting up when he told me the story, because I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. You got a guy who could barely keep a roof over his head, yet he's a drug dealer, and you're buying drugs from him. What kind of sense does that make? It doesn't, man. It's like, it's comedy. You're of course this guy is gonna be cutting the product with whatever he can to stretch it, because he's trying to come up. And so you don't know a lot of times what you're getting, and if it's a legitimate source, and you don't know what it's gonna do to you, tomorrow or right then. There's been, people I know that have had, friends that have done some drugs and, man, overdose right on the spot, man. And the other person did the same batch and they didn't overdose, but overdose on the spot and didn't make it, man. And it's sad, man. It's just, the drugs it's not something, it could be what people would think is fun, but it's not something that I would, recommend that you entertain if you could avoid it. There's a lot of other things you could do. There's a lot of other ways to get high off life. But, I'm not trying to preach or tell you guys you're cornballs if you do drugs. hey, you know, to each his own. I know you're going to do whatever you're going to do anyways. I'm just saying, I don't do them. It's just not, like I said, not my cup of tea. And I've seen a lot of people get high around me. I've watched them. I've, you know, entertained them to some degree, but I just never participated. I felt like, hey, I'm a little bit, you know, outside of that, so I'll let you do it now. And you could tell me what kind of feeling you got from doing it. And that'd be my, what do you call it, vicarious high. I'll vicariously get high through watching you act a fool after you do that blower, after you sip that scissor and get the nodding off. But I'm not gonna do it with you. So, Big Herc, you're a square, you don't get high. Okay, I'll accept that title. Holler at me, man. BigHerc916.com. If you need some life coaching in your life, you're trying to get right. Hey, man, I'm all about that positivity and that motivation. Subscribe to the channel.